Good evening, everyone. Let me welcome particularly warmly our guest, Mahmood. Good to see you again.
I'm here.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all for joining us today. This is the Filmmakers Forum is an event of the Nollywood Studies Centre. The Nollywood Studies Centre is a unit of the School of Media and Communication of the Pan Atlantic University. It's a resource and research center and aimed primarily at furthering or contributing to the development of the film industry. And this is one of the events that we organize to facilitate interaction amongst filmmakers themselves and amongst or between the filmmakers or persons in the film industry with the general public. So, welcome once again, Mahmoud. Thank you so much for agreeing to be with us again. This will be the second or third time we are harassing you like this
It's a
to
pleasure.
come and
We'll
talk
take
to
care.
us.
Thank you.
So welcome.
Thank you.
I think there have been quite a few interesting developments since the last time you were with us. But before we go any further, let me just take a little your bio. For those who do not know him so well, which will be very few people, I'm sure, Mahmood Ali-Balogun is a film producer and director. He is the current chairman of the Audiovisual Rights Society of Nigeria, the AVRS, the collecting society for intellectual property rights owners in the Nigerian film industry. He's also the vice chairman of the Oscar Selection Committee for Nigeria, and he's also the managing director of Brickhouse Media Limited. He has been in the Nigerian film industry for close to 3 decades, if not more. And to his credit, various feature films and documentaries. These include the well-known Tango with Me, as well as Dance of the Maidens, Traditional Marriage Rights, Birthing a Nation, Dividends of Democracy, Trafficking in Women and Children, The New Slavery, Environmental Pollution in Nigeria, and various other uh, feature films and documentaries. He has been involved in various associations and bodies, such as the Independent Television Producers Association of Nigeria, IPAN, the National Association of Nigeria Theatre Arts Practitioners, NANTAP, and the Conference of Motion Picture Practitioners of Nigeria. He has also been a member of the steering committee for the Motion Picture Council of Nigeria, MOPICAN, and has served on the advisory council for Federación Pan-Africaine des Cinemas. If I have murdered the pronunciation there, you will forgive me, as well as functioning on the jury of the 2015 International Emmy Award. It's a pretty weighty bio, and I haven't really covered everything. But it gives us the basis for our discussion this evening. Well, before we get going, please feel free to drop your questions in the chat box, and we'll take them as we go along. So, Mahmoud, welcome once again. Thank you
Thank you once again.
so much. Well, before we jump into some of the things you have been doing recently, let me look at something that does not seem to have been so much on the front burner these days. It's been quite a while that we have seen your name in the neon lights in connection with a new film or so. So, as a filmmaker, what have you been up to recently?
Well, thank you, Octavia. It's a privilege talking to all of you. I don't take it lightly. Yes, I've been involved in a lot. I've been involved in advocacy so much. Uh, AVRS is taking so much of my time. But in terms of film itself, I've been very, very active. Uh, COVID apart, uh, I tell you, let me just let this off the bat. I'm on a project right now, a co-production project between Nigeria and South Africa. It's called Damages. We're hoping to start pre-production next month and to start. principal photography between June and July. Before then, I've been doing a lot of consultancy. I'm sure you see some credits with my name on it. I may not necessarily be producing or directing, but I've
Right.
been assisting my colleagues in getting things done. And I've been doing what I do most, that is consulting for my clients who are not necessarily filmmakers. I consult for them as an individual consultant, doing uh, what do I call it, documenting the activities that brings the money in. You know, filmmaking itself, the one that people are used to, something gets to drive it. You know, it's a
Yeah,
passion, but something gets to pay the bills for it, for you to be able
of course.
to put things out. I'm not one to producing movies every year. I take my time, and very soon a new one will come out.
I was rather struck by what you said just now, that you are involved in a South African co-production.
Yeah.
I remember a while back that in discussing with a practitioner of the industry, he raised the what has been a bit of a what well, at least I was told, I don't have all the details here, but what has been a bit of a problem in organizing such co-productions, which is that uh, there are certain agreements which the government should sign with other governments to facilitate such co-productions. And the challenge has so far been that many of these things are not signed. So now you see you are organizing a co-production with South Africa. How is that? What is the status these days of such agreements?
I must say this categorically. This is an official co-production between Nigeria and South Africa.
Okay.
The only snag I'll say is the fact that in South Africa, their government, their agencies are behind my partner that we are co-producing together. In Nigeria, I'm working on getting the Nigerian government to support it, right? The Honorable Minister of Information, Alajilai Muhammad, was part of the initiative at the inception. That was 2016 when some South Africans came to Nigeria, some delegation of South Africans came to Nigeria to be part of the film festival that we had then. We had a meeting at the National Theatre, the VIP Lounge, and two projects were broached, and this is one of them. And I believe that the necessary tying of knots will be done. But the person who you discussed with is quite right for you to have a co-production treaty as different from having a co-production or an MOU to
Right.
usher in a co-production. Treaty involves government, involves agencies of government, and at the end of the day, the president of each country or his representative through the minister will now append their signatures to that treaty. There will be to and froing between the two countries who are to be engaged in a cooperation treaty. But what I'm working on is uh, kind of a linchpin that will usher in a proper treaty, because the treaties that Nigeria has had in the past, we were not able to take advantage of it. Presently, I doubt if we have any official treaty with any country. I know there have been initiatives not in too distant a past by the film corporation trying to bring in the French government and the Moroccan government, but I don't know the level of that. But I don't think there's any. So the guy is quite right that for you to have a treaty, a co-production treaty, there must be some signatures put on paper by governments of both countries, which presently we don't have between Nigeria and South Africa. But that is not saying what I'm doing is oblivious to the two governments.
Right.
Like I said, the
Right.
South African government is fully behind through their agency, the National Film Foundation, DTI, that's the Department of Trade and Industry, and even one of their commissions, the regional commission, KwaZulu Natal Film Commission, is involved. They are funding fully these projects through grants. And I am still struggling with the fund. I am hoping to get most of it, right? But we're making progress.
Okay, so it's a co-funded thing then. Both parties have to put in,
Oh,
have
sure,
to
sure, sure. That's the essence of co-production.
exactly.
The two parties have to bring in money and take care of certain variables on both sides, both countries. We're shooting in Nigeria and shooting in South Africa, you know. So that's how it's done. It was initiated, like I said, with the knowledge of the Honorable Minister of Information and Culture, and I believe very much strongly that uh, by the time we get rolling officially, our government will be part of this.
Now, but this aspect, I think, is a particularly important one. The these agreements, because it's both such co-production agreements. It's also things to do with what you are heavily involved in right now, the work of the AVRS. Because if you want to pursue, for instance, the thing of the royalties in other countries, you will need this kind of agreements between governments, so to speak. Now, um, on that general level, without being specific about the kinds of agreements now, what what kind of structures do we have? Because we are talking about growing our film industry, but we cannot grow it if we have only these local structures. So what is the terrain like at this moment? What
Oh,
kind of agreements do we have, if any at all? And what do we
yeah,
need to be in place?
yeah. Necessarily, agreements will have to be developed by both countries. I mean, that is given. If you're going to go into co-production, there ought to be certain structures in place. They'll be looking at your funding structure. They will be looking at your tax structure in terms of rebates and all that, and your practice structure in terms of the what goes to the artist, what goes to the filmmaker, and all that. And talking about collecting societies, which you brought in at the beginning, the collecting societies operate outside this agreement.
Right.
Between the collecting societies, they have their own agreement, what we call reciprocal agreements between
Okay.
countries. And AVRS in Nigeria will have a reciprocal agreement with an AVRS uh, uh, kind of structure in South Africa or anywhere, so that we will be able to take care of their own interests in Nigeria, and they will be able to take care of their interest, our own interest in their country. So the CMO structure is kind of independent of whatever happens within co-production treaties or agreements. But be that as it may, while you are going into contracts, the possibility exists that you will make some demands on the filmmaker, the producer, as an artist or as a participant in the production. That look, you will need some back end because you're not sure of what the structure is in a partnering company. You would need some back end for residuals or royalties that they generally call it. And that exists in Nigeria and it exists in other countries as well. So it's just for our people to be knowledgeable enough to take advantage of the existence of such clauses or such agreements in whatever contract they are signing.
Okay. On that point about being knowledgeable enough, the Nigerian Copyright Commission approved the AVRS to function as the sole CMO for the cinematograph films in Nigeria as far back as 2015. We are now in the sixth year, if my mathematics is correct.
2014.
14. Ah, okay. So that I had that wrong. So even more time. Now, I think I get the impression, I may be wrong, but I get the impression that quite a few people still do not know what the AVRS really does or how it functions. Could you give us a bit of light on that? Because you just said now that there's a lack of knowledge, and I think that this is one area in which most of us perhaps really don't have a clue. How can we benefit? How can we tap into it? How can we function with you?
Thank you very much. I hope you will not send me a bill after this to say that AVRS should donate something to
Don't worry, you're safe.
pay.
You're safe. You're safe on that
Because
one.
I'm going to advertise that. You're very right. The knowledge as regards the work of AVRS in Nigeria is still quite in its infancy, so to speak. Um, a collective management organization, what it does, I need to put it in simple terms, is that it represents filmmakers, right, who are right owners. As for AVRS, it represents producers, directors, writers, and actors. When I mean actors, we're talking about the lead actors and those who play support. It's not everybody in the movie ecosystem. That is how ours is structured. What we do is that we collect on their behalf from users of audiovisual works, IP works, or like you rightly said, as is in our copyright act, cinematograph films, right? We collect on their behalf residuals that they cannot ordinarily collect on their own. Take, for example, from hotels in Nigeria. Every actor, every producer cannot go to every individual hotel in Nigeria for the use of their work in their rooms, in their restaurants, or chalets, right? So what AVRS does is find an aggregate charge for each hotel, right? And we present them with an invoice. Paying for that invoice, we license them to use those works on behalf of the right owners. Whatever they pay, we in turn distribute to right owners who are our members. I'll come to that again. We only charge, AVRS takes just 30% of whatever it aggregates as management fees. The remaining 70% is shared amongst its numerous members. Yes, what I am coming to, you see, for you to benefit from AVRS, AVRS is the sole collective management organization in Nigeria as at today. I mean, it represents every right owner in the country. So for you to benefit from what AVRS is doing, you will have to join AVRS. It's on our website, www.avrsnigeria.com. The details are there. You join, and by presenting your works, you assign your works to us, right? Fill the form, assign your works to us, and we ascertain, screen you that you are the right owner of such work that you begin to enjoy. AVRS is barely 5 years old in this. It's a baby CMO, right? The practice is in our climate and majority of Africa is still in its infancy. But when you go to other parts of the world, especially the Nordic countries where they've been having it for over 100 years, you hear filmmakers making residuals of in the millions. We hear the people in the music territory, music area, have been able to advance the cost to a large extent. Uh, AVRS, in its own stride, will definitely make very giant strides very soon in bringing people on board and in turn remunerating their members for whatever it's collecting. The first collection we did was just before the pandemic. And during the pandemic, we were able to share the little we had with the few members who subscribe to AVRS. And some of them are on this platform as I'm talking. I've seen some of their pictures. So the more the merrier, right? People need to come and join. If you don't join, you cannot benefit from it. Enlightenment is ongoing. We're thanking God that the pandemic is getting cleared and all that, even though we still need to be very careful. We will engage in enlightenment fora and meetings where we'll implore our colleagues to join AVRS to take
Sorry,
advantage
let
of
me
whatever
interrupt
government.
you. let me interrupt you briefly, please, just to have some idea. You said few members. Can you give us some idea? How many people, how many members, what's your membership strength
Well,
right now? Those who have
right
signed
now
up?
we're less than 1,000, right? Which is for the little we are doing, which is very encouraging, because there is an apathy on the part of my colleagues, to things like this. People, because they are not well informed, they're assuming that assigning their rights to AVRS or any collective management organization, they are losing control. No, we only take what you can not ordinarily collect on your own. We don't go to the cinema to collect royalties for you because you are there. And some of the monies you also collect from the OTT platforms, you collect directly. What we take from the OTT platforms is a minuscule part, right, that will go to the actors, the writers, and the directors, and in some cases, the producers as well. Despite the fact that the producer has signed a contract with an OTT platform or anybody, but that doesn't mean that he owns the rights in perpetuity, right? There is the erroneous impression that, oh, once the producer has assigned the right, then he owns it forever. No, the law does not guarantee that.
That brings me to something that came to my mind as you were talking. For what the AVRS is trying to do, especially what you said about proving that um, those who come to you with the works are the right owners. I think there needs to be some sort of legal structure to back much of this, the whole thing of the contracts. And this, I think, is one of the areas in which perhaps we are a little weak. The ensuring that people at the different levels really do sign valid contracts and that legal structure is there. Now, if you're trying to ensure that people have signed up for their work and all the various other things you're trying to do, and this structure is lacking, how much of your work can you really carry out effectively?
I must say this, within the AVRS, you just can't come to us and say, oh, you own this work. No, we have structure to verify whatever you bring to us. That's why we screen anybody who's coming to join, and we screen and verify whatever claims they bring forward that they own this and all that. In terms of the holistic structure as per the contract, I think it's part of our responsibility also to educate filmmakers, our colleagues, on the kind of contracts they sign. Um, Unfortunately, most of the people who engage us are so, I don't want to use a negative word, you know, they do what, like I would call underhand style. I remember sometimes in 2013 or 14, I was at a festival in Paris, and a platform came forward so proudly that they had more than 5,000 Nollywood titles. And I asked a question and I said, look, how did you acquire these titles? They said, oh, they acquired it from a popular platform from Nigeria. And I said, and my colleagues are not aware of this and all that. And the lady got jittery. And I said, look, we're going to come to the, I don't blame you. You acquired it rightly, but the people who assign those rights to you will have to come up with an explanation. But over the years, we've been trying to get our colleagues to come forth, because if you don't take on cases, there's no way you will be able to establish certain things in this country. We are still very afraid. We're still very ignorant, um, afraid of being blacklisted, you know, despite the fact that some of these things are our rights that we ought to assert. So it's a whole lot that we need to do. on the part of my organization, AVRS, will continue to encourage filmmakers, right owners to come forward and will enlighten them. I mean, just last year, yes, I think April last year, right? The Beijing Treaty on audiovisual performances was put in place by WIPO, World Intellectual Property Organization. Nigeria was part of it. Yes, though we are about domesticating it, but that alone tells every user of audiovisual work when it comes to performances that they have no absolute or order to complete control in perpetuity of rights of performance. You must give back something whenever demand is made appropriately. And that is where we are heading to. Even our present Nigerian Copyright Act is quite explicit as regards what your rights are. But unfortunately, even those in the justice system are still very, very, very ignorant of some of these IP issues. So it's a process that is emerging, that is developing, and we hope we take advantage of it to our benefits very soon.
It seems to me that a lot of enlightenment, well, let me say an enlightenment campaign needs to be carried out.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
For what you are trying to do, for instance, in these years that the AVRS has been functioning, how much of that has been done? In terms, because you say people are apathetic. So, but how much? What has been done to really enlighten so many people out there who perhaps, like you say, are not aware of what they stand to gain or lose here?
I'll tell you this: we've gone around the country enlightening people. One, we've been to all the zones in the country. We've been to the north, we've been to Abuja, we've done in the southwest, we've done in the east, we've done in the Bendel area, And just in 2019, before the pandemic, we had a major stakeholders forum at the hotels where we invited everybody. It was big. It was all over the media. Our members were there. Even some of those who are there with us still have not assigned their rights to us. Like I said, there is this fear of being blacklisted by some of our performers that if we take on this case, we will not get jobs anymore from this particular platform or that particular platform. We just have to do what is right. The enlightenment is ongoing. We do it every day. If you go on our website, you'll see what we have there. And our people are so apathetic when it comes to things like this. I don't know why. And again, also, I don't blame a lot of us for it. You see, there's a particular nucleus that is lacking in our industry. That's another discussion entirely. Regulation in the industry is to the dogs, right? Anybody does what he or she likes. Our guilds and associations are not empowered enough, right, to do what they ought to be doing, right? Until that is in place, we will have this situation of things not getting done properly. By the time we have that structure, we have a body that represents us, that interfaces with the rest of the economy, right? That speaks for the industry as a whole, not a Mahmood Ali-Balogun or Bala Musa or Ikechukwu coming forward to say, look, I represent the industry, whereas we represent our various pockets. There are a myriad of people doing that right now. And that is the key bane today in the industry. Nobody can speak for the entire industry like you have with the other sectors of the economy. If the government wants to do anything today, I bet you they will just look for prominent faces who have their peculiar interests, right, to take on issues. How can that work? In advertising, they have APCON, you have MBA. Even you in the university, you have your ASU, right? But in the film industry today, what do we have? Nada. So until we have such a body with a legal status, right, that will compel people to deal with you, that look, fine, this is a body recognized, a body corporate recognized by government, right, to deal on issues representing the industry. Until then, it's our individual interest that we'll continue to promote, which is what is hampering the development of the industry today. Nollywood has done so much that that we shouldn't be at the mediocre level that we are today. I say that mediocre guardedly, you know, but it's still mediocre in terms of how we organize ourselves.
Now, some people have said, because this really leads me to the role you have played as as a member of the steering committee for the Motion Picture Council of Nigeria, because I think that that is one council that, well, has been put forward to respond to what you were just talking about, the need to have a body representing the entire industry. But some people have raised the objection that given the nature of the creative force, which the film industry is, rather also like the music industry also, that can you really have a body that controls in the kind of way that you have the body that APCON controlling the advertising sector, for instance? Because part of what people have said is you need a body that determines who comes into the industry, who stays, and this kind of thing. How is that? That's the objection that many people have raised in that context. Is this the kind of structure you're thinking about?
No, no. I think there's a misconception and unnecessary fear on the part of some of my colleagues, right? The idea of control is antithetic to creativity. I'll tell you that openly, right? And whatever council we have or guild, whatever name we want to call the body, will not be controlling creativity. What is necessary is a body that can interface with the rest of the economy. You get what I'm saying? If it means that, look, we need to structure in terms of entries and exits, so be it, right? But that is not saying that it is going to deprive other people from practicing, right? What will happen is you have a body and there will be benefits that will derive to you being a member of that body. If you don't belong to it, you go on with what you want to do. But we need to have something that we know that, look, there are issues within the sector, within the industry that we need to tackle, right? How do we tackle it? We don't tackle it from our individual perspectives. We must have a collective. You get what I'm saying? So it's not about control. It's about how we interface, right? I mean, you will agree with me that all manner of bodies have come up in the past and are still coming up that say they represent the interest of the industry. But when you look at their modus operandi, they are just pursuing their own interests as bodies, right? But we need that singular body that will aggregate our interests and push it as an agenda. Are you get what I'm saying? We don't have that now. You see, this fear of say, oh, you want to bar somebody from. No, there can't be anything like that, right? It's a free market economy that we have. People have their right, freedom to anything you want to do. So far, you are not impinging on my own freedom, right? But look, there are, despite what you have in some, let's even take law, for instance, that they have a body of law, the MBA. You still have quacks. Not too long ago, we read about somebody who has been practicing for years at the highest level in our courts, only for them to discover that he has no law degree, not to talk of going to law school. So it will exist anywhere, but the point is that there must be a way we organize ourselves that will be able to deal with issues in the industry and then interface with the rest of the economy. That is what I'm advocating for. It's not to stifle anybody. You can grow to whatever you want to go. But you see, when you have such a body, there will also be entry and exit criteria, right? It can't just be an all-commerce affair. We must call a spade a spade. But that's not saying you're going to deprive anybody from doing what they want to do as per film. My daughter, I shout out to them in your school today. I have my daughter in your school and her friends,
Okay.
right? Ikelua and Awile, Olamide. Shout out to you guys in ISMS and Mascot, right? Shout out to you all. So, like I was saying, so you must have that criteria, whether people like it or not. For you to belong to a group, there has to be certain things that will qualify you to belong, right? People should deceive themselves that, oh, I can just wake up and be anything I want to be. No, right? That is where the fear is. But even with that, it's not going to stop anybody from practicing as a filmmaker. But when we come together, have our group, and we say we're professionals, and you don't belong, you definitely cannot benefit from whatever benefits accrue to us who are members of that professional group. That is just it.
But is this not linked to, well, what one could call a bit of a structural problem? Because if you say before you enter the industry, you must have certain things. But I am thinking now of a key area in which we still need to do a
No,
lot
I
more
need to correct you.
development.
It's not that you must have,
No, no,
right?
yes, no, no, I get that. At least it's useful.
It will be desirous. It will be nice for you to have.
Yes,
If you don't
exactly.
have it and you still want to run your company, go ahead and run your company.
Okay.
Nobody's going to stop you.
But I'm thinking that because this, to me, it seems to me that this ties in with the two things you have spoken about, or two of the things you've spoken about so far. The fear that people have, and then also, well, in order to foster a greater sense of the unity, foster a greater sense of, well, let us have a common front. I'm thinking the lack of the, well, we could say sufficient educational structures for that prepare people for this sector. Would you agree that that is also something that also needs to be given some attention in order to facilitate some of what you're talking about?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Education is key. Are you know what I'm saying? The industry is as old as man. Again, when you're talking about performance, right? But you see, we cannot continue in the how do I put it? In the way things were done in the past. Say, oh, I mean, we were created without clothes on, for instance, but we are all wearing, and we now say, oh, because that was how we were created, that we should be going about dangling and doing whatever is shaking in front of us or between our legs. Are you know what I'm saying? So the point is this, right? We get to evolve. Talking about structure, what a council or a guild, a national guild, a body corporate that represents the industry will bring about will be that structure you're talking about, how things should be done, what level of education, what level of apprenticeship, what level of interaction you need to have with each other to bring about the best, right? What ethics are you going to practice are you going to put in place? What codes are you going to put in place to guide your practice and all that? That is not necessarily about depriving you from being a member or not being a member. These are things that you will all agree to. Are you get what I'm saying? But it has to start from somewhere. You build if you cannot say you want to build from nothing. The industry already exists. We need a fast track. And that fast track is in terms of having a body that will represent our collective interests. Because today, the kind of abuse that exists within the industry. If we start talking about them, we'll be here for ages, right? But something has to give, something has to come up to address some of these issues, be it social, be it economy, whatever you want to call it. It has to be done. It's a silicon. We cannot will have it. If we don't have it, look, advertising. When Akon was not there, right? I've been around a little bit. That's why I have some gray hairs. Thank you. Right? So, right? I was an I was practicing advertising, despite the fact that I had no training in it, and I was making money. But when Akon came forth, they encouraged us to join and do so many things, and there were things they put in place. And as a filmmaker, I just found out that look, this advertising thing I'm doing is not my core area, and it's really not it for me. There are certain things they put as stumbling blocks, so to speak, right? That I will not be able to, not stumbling blocks, certain things that they put in place that will better the practice. And I just felt it was unnecessary for me. Let me just go to my core area. That was why I left it. But look at what APCON has done to advertise it in Nigeria today. Despite the lack of structure in Nollywood, it's contributing close to 2% to our GDP.
Yeah.
But it could do better if that structure is in place.
Okay, well, let me break away from my train here of thought to ask a question which has come from Samuel. Samuel wants to know, in view of the digital nature of copyright laws and new forms of creative productions, which has also impacted film and other creative content distribution, how has AVRS prepared itself and its members in capturing this use of these creations so as to properly deliver royalties to your members? I am looking, he says, at the ubiquitous nature of performance of audiovisual creations, films.
Yeah, you see, the digital age has thrown serious challenge to everybody, particularly those of us in the creative space and the IP space, right? We are updating ourselves. Like, look, what is talking about online platforms, the OTTs, and all that. People like Netflix and people who have channels on YouTube and all that, right? Technology is evolving daily, right? And we are taking advantage of the such evolution. In the area of music, a lot has been done, and that is why they've been able to make the impact they've had thus far. That's why our whiskey, the Davidos are multi-millionaires, both in naira and dollars today, because they've been the music industry has been able to develop the technology that monitors and rewards use of musical work. And that is also evolving in the audiovisual sector. Like I said, AVRS is barely 5 years in operation as a CMO. And we are taking advantage of the new technologies coming up. That is why we are bold to tell our people to come forth and be part of us, because we have a place. We may not have acquired it yet, but it exists. Technology that we can deploy to monitor the use of audiovisual works and also to be able to distribute equitably whatever we receive from users. So it's something that we are quite aware and abreast with. So we're not resting on an oars. The more the merrier, like I said earlier. If our people come forward, we are discussing with technology platforms and companies on how best to take advantage of these developments for us to be able to monetize the use of works in various platforms.
On the back of that, last year, well, was it last year? There was a report that the AVRS was quoted to have threatened to embark on a massive picketing of organizations that refuse to be licensed as users of audiovisual works. How is that going? Has that situation improved?
You are very right. But for COVID, we will have picketed some institutions last year. But thank God for that delay. We were able to get some, how do I put it now, some arrangements in place with the support of the Nigerian Police Force, the outgoing IG, and particularly a sector of our users, the hotels, because we are moving A before B, right? You take on the low hanging fruits first, but we don't have to picket anymore. Well, that's not saying we will not picket if the majority of them refuse. As of today, they are complying. Most of them have come to us in the office. We've had meetings with some of their organizations on the need for us to work amicably and work out on how they are going to liquidate their debts to us, and it's an ongoing process. The picketing part is still there for those who think they can play us, they don't want to pay, right? Uh, and I will say this here for the benefit of some of those platforms. We are on the verge of taking some of them to court, but for this strike by just of these court workers. So it's our right by virtue of our licensing by government for us to go after these monies. So it's the picketing thing is not a rumor. We were going to start the picketing on the 28th of March 2020 with the backing of the Nigerian Police Force. But the lockdown started, I think, on the 21st. So
Yeah.
that aborted it. But this year, we were able to get the place to interface with some of these uh, users of our rights, and there's progress. That's just what I would say for now.
Now, let me understand something. Let's take a hotel, for instance.
Take what?
If let's take
Yeah,
a hotel, or even the bus transportation
transportation
services
service. Yes.
that you're trying to get to pay for the works that they use. Now, the source of the content that they use, um, do you take that into consideration? For instance, we do know that I mean, people buy what's available, and sometimes this is pirated material. Um, is that part of the thing? But okay, I'm trying to understand really. If you go to a hotel, is the hotel paying to you a license, for instance, for what they will, if they happen to have a multi-choice channel, is that what they're paying for, or is it also other sources? And if it happens to be that you are aware that a fellow is obtaining materials from the pirate market, is that something you also intervene in to challenge them on?
Yeah, maybe I should make something clear. You see, what the people we license, that AVRS issues an audiovisual license, include everyone that is using any form of audiovisual material to
Right.
enhance their business.
Okay.
Mark my words, to enhance their business. The hotels, the transporters, airline, road transport, uh, 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 um, even hospitals, telcos, right? Um, Salons where you do your pedicure and manicure and your hair and all that, barbing salons, anywhere that audiovisual work is used to enhance, beer parlors, restaurants, right? So AVRS is licensed to charge them a fee, right, for the use of such works that they are using to enhance their business, right? And that is what we are doing. Like I said, we work on the low hanging, the ones that we can readily go to first. Like the hotels, for instance, right? You mentioned them specifically. Let me speak specifically to the hotels. Imagine you are going to a hotel in Nasarawa and they give you a room. You don't have a TV there, right? How would you feel, right? So that TV, through the signals being relayed, right, is an added value to that room. So it's that value that whatever signal is coming is bringing that we are charging for per room, right? And it's you won't believe the biggest hotel in Nigeria, right? We even charge them less than, mark my word, less than 150 naira a day per room. Hotels that charge 100,000 a day, we charge them less than 150 naira, right? What we were licensed to charge was 250, but we're not unaware of the economic situation in the country, so we brought it down. Even with that, they are still playing games with us. But we're working things out, and things are getting better. So it's just as simple as that. So the hotels, you would not want to bring in the fact that they have paid to DSTV or to Start Times, or they are getting signals from NTA, right? That's a different ball game, right? They they are relaying the signals to you. Does not necessarily mean that you will now rebroadcast it, you recommunicate it. If you look at the Nigerian Copyright Act, what we license is when you rebroadcast, when you recommunicate, reproduce, right, and copy. That's what we license you for, because the TV in your room, right, is communicating our work to your customers, right? So you have to pay for that, because if it's not there, the customer may not be there. In your private homes, we are not coming to you to license you because you're not using it for anything. It's just for your personal enjoyment,
Right.
right? So that is it. I don't know if I'm clear.
No, quite clear.
Yeah.
Quite clear. Quite clear. Now, from what you said, I mean, it gave me really a massive picture, because if you're
Yeah.
going to go after all the barbers
Hotel.
shops and so on, that's a
Yeah.
tremendous target. When
Yeah,
do you think
I would
you'll?
say this, you see, because it's new, right? If you can imagine when they started getting people to license their cars in the
Yes.
country, right? It was this massive as well. But today, nobody tells you to go and renew the license for your car every day. I mean, every year. You know, it's your civic duty. You got to do it. And we are praying, we are hoping through what we do, and so this is going to transcend me. People will come to be paying for audiovisual license like that. In the Nordic countries, right? That is how it is. And it's been because they've been doing this for over 100 years. People get their licenses just as you go to get your driver's license or anything, because it's mandatory. It's the law. But in Nigeria, people are not even paying taxes yet, the government taxes. You know, they
Yeah.
can imagine the wahala we are going through. See, government has come again. This multiple taxation that is going on, and we are telling them no, it's not the same thing, right? But we'll get there. It's a journey of 1,000 miles. We've taken the first few steps, and we'll continue.
Okay. Then I have a question here from Ajike, who wants to know, how do you plan to use or distribute the funds collected from the hotels and other businesses showing audiovisual content? I know you said already that you already did distribute some money
Yeah.
earlier
Well,
this year or a
well,
little less.
yeah.
Yes.
Like I said, whatever we contribute, what AVRS is allowed by law to use for its management and operations is just 30%, right? The remaining 70% is shared on equal basis with members. We have not been able to develop the technology yet to apportion different percentages to people, right? We do what we call general distribution. And once you're a member, you are entitled to whatever we are distributing. So it's that simple.
Okay.
But technology is being developed that will ensure that, because by virtue of the amount of exposure your work gets, through that technology, we'll be able to ascertain whose work gets exposed more, gets used more, and whose work gets less used. Based on that, that distribution ratio will change. And technology is going to help us with that. We're still at infancy. Uh, as a matter of fact, AVRS is a model CMO for the WIPO. You know,
Okay.
it's not an easy thing, particularly on our continent and in the third world. Nigeria is not doing badly. What we has developed in most territories is the music one. You know.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Arike or Abike, I hope we're a
Ajike,
bit clear.
yes.
Abike.
Okay. Now, let me move you away from the AVRS back to the issue of the MOPCA. That has been on the cards for quite a while.
Why, yes.
Quite a while. What exactly is happening? How has it come? What's the status? Is it likely to be put in place? Is it ever going to surface? And then also, what is the feedback from the practitioners themselves about it?
Right. 100% AVRS has come a long way, and it has its ups and downs and all that. It started during the days of uh, 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 the former Minister of Information, uh, Emeka Chikelu, right? It was the one that initiated it, and successive governments have tried, and one way or the other, we've stumbled. Not for lack of trying, but for, in Nigeria today, there are many interest groups, right? And there are those who want Mobicon, and there are those who are against it. There are those who are benefiting from the unstructured nature of our industry today, and there are those who are suffering from it. Those benefiting from it will not want a structured environment. I don't want to mention names. And, you know, influence is key in whatever you're doing, right? And influence can be financial, can be whatever. Over the years, we've made very great strides, but one way or the other, people have come forward to throw spanner in the works. But I'll tell you, this current minister is very determined, as regards putting that structure in place. It's not going to be a government agency, as some are touting. And it's not going to be a structure that will be dependent on government for sustenance. No, right? It's a it's a body that will be self-sustaining, right? Because I mean, if you have a body for filmmakers and everybody more or less subscribes to it, the key people, it can sustain itself. But that's not saying that it cannot enjoy largesse from anywhere, either from government or the corporate world, right? So the minister is bent on it. And of course, there are industry practitioners who are also bent on ensuring that it comes to force. So we are putting all resources together, right? All we need is another champion, or we need more champions to push it to the National Assembly for us to be able to get it going. There, of course, when anything good is going to come out, there will be forces against it, forces of darkness and forces of light. Don't let us go into that, So, right. So it's something that, like I said, it's a silicon of we have no choice for us to get this industry to the pedestal where it ought to be, right? We must have such a body. And efforts are in top gear. I'll assure you that it sees the light of the day before the demise of this administration.
Okay, thank you. Now, just a reminder to the House, please feel free to drop your questions in the chat box. and we'll take them as we go along. Now, in Mahmood, in November last year, you called for the law and regulation necessary for the implementation of the copyright levy. Can you explain to us what that is about?
I did call for it. The law is already there. It's been in existence, right, since 2007, and a regulation out also in 2012. It's a law already. It's not Mahmood advocating for it. What I called for in 2019 was the implementation of the law.
Yeah.
Are you know what I'm saying? The
Mm.
copyright levy, the private copy on copyright materials, that's how it's called, right, is a levy imposed on any product, anything that you can use to replicate creative work, whether it's audiovisual, whether it's photography, or whether it's musical. I'm talking of your photocopier, your DVD player, your printing machine, your papers, your anything that you can use to replicate, right? Either it's video, or it's a book, or it's music, or it's somebody's photograph, right? So that is what the levy is all about. The government, in its wisdom, and that is the practice the world over, right? In its wisdom, said, look, the piracy has been so endemic. Another way to begin to compensate creatives is through this kind of levy, whether you like call it tax. Is a very small tax, right, on those things that are being imported into the country, or even if they are being produced locally, right? So those that is supposed to be collected by the custom. It will have been implemented in the days of Baba's government, but we had a hiccup somewhere because the Enlightenment, everything has been done because for you to implement any kind of anything in this country, be it tax or whatever, you see, the various stakeholders have to be enlightened. Those who are going to be paying the tax, the levy, and those who are supposed to be benefiting from the levy. Again, I'm saying there has to be a synergy in terms of how it's going to be done, how are we going to be paying it, and why are we paying it, and for what purpose, right? And that we did in 2014, 2013, 2014, thereabout. Unfortunately, uh, one way or the other, we were not able to get it going with Okonjo Iweala then. She was the Minister of Finance because it falls within the purview of the Finance Ministry, who ought to have informed the custom, or not informed, maybe ordered the custom services to start charging
Yeah.
on this thing as they're coming into our ports. But somewhere along the line, like I said, the what word do I use to describe them again? I don't want to be too negative. Our those people who try to scuttle our interests one way or the other, they didn't let it happen. So we have been calling on government again, right, to help us, because those things are used to pirate our works, right?
Okay.
You know what DVD was like,
Mm.
right? Is to mitigate the effect of piracy. Look at the books. You go on the street, Kingsway Road, or they call it Alfred Rwani Road now. You see books that were just released barely a month ago. They are selling them on our streets, pirated copies, right? So how do we want the writers, the publishers to survive? I'm not even talking of our films. You know the way they pirate works on the internet today, music. Just take your flash drive, you copy whatever you want to copy, either movie or music. So those are the things that levies are charged upon. A small
Right.
percentage. Some are just 1%, some are 2%, some are 3%. I don't think there's anyone beyond 3%. And that money goes into the federal government coffers, right? And in turn is given to the creatives through the NCC, and is shared between the existing CMOs for their members, right? Is to mitigate piracy. As simple as that. So I'm not calling for it. The law is already there. We are just appealing to government. In fact, we were supposed to have a seminar, a webinar some weeks ago on this. But the wisdom of our regulators said, look, let us wait a little bit. We would need to interface with some of the ministers before even the Minister of Justice, I'm sure, is not resting on his oars as regards getting the thing implemented. There has to be an interface between him and his finance counterpart, for the thing to work. As per the law, the Justice Ministry have done their best. It's already been passed as law. It's now, the onus is now with the Federal Ministry of Finance to implement it, for them to tell customs, start charging. In Ghana, that is only what they enjoy. In Burkina Faso, in Malawi, right? I think Kenya is beginning to enjoy it now. And this money runs into billions. I mean, billions.
Right. Now, but linked to much of this, even also some of the work of the AVRS, a big obstacle for pursuing or enforcing the copyright is precisely the fact that the NCC, for instance, this has been a big challenge for them, that they don't have that kind of manpower to be able to enforce. So I know that we've been talking about the new copyright bill for a while now. I don't know, does this contain that, or is this part of, given your position, and I'm asking you this, I know you're not a government person, but do you have any idea, is this part of, because in all of these discussions, if that aspect is not tackled, then no matter how beautiful the law is, it's never going to work if there's no aspect of enforcement.
The levy is a win-win for everybody, even government itself, right? We all know that some of our agencies are not well funded. And one of the agencies that is so malnourished in terms of funding is the NCC, whether they like to hear it or not, right? And we know why. It's because of the level, the place where we put anything that has to do with culture or creatives in this country, right? We place them in the backwaters, right? It's only when they want to dance, when visitors are coming, that they remember people in the creative business, right? But seriously speaking, the creative sector, anything that has to do with our culture, is poorly funded. Look at our budgets every year.
Yeah.
Culture and tourism is usually the last in the rung, right? The lower rung, not the upper one, no, the lower rung. So what we're saying is, what I say is a win-win for all is that, look, when that levy comes into force and they're charging, of course, a percentage of what is collected is going to go to the NCC. It's quite clear in the regulation that is in place. They would take a certain percentage of it to help in their activities, in ensuring that IP is well guarded, fight piracy and do things that will promote creativity, right? So it is there. It's not just all the money going to the creatives alone. NCC will take, even the custom that is collected will take their own percentage out of it. The government will tax it, so it's a win-win for all. It's not just us in the creative sector that are going to enjoy in music, audiovisual, or publishing that are going to get the money. It's something that we're all going to share.
Okay.
But the bulk of the money is going to go to the right owners. Okay. Rightly so.
Fantastic. Thank you. Now, I have a question here from Nkem, who says, the draft copyright law did not recognize an actor's performance as copyright.
Come again, read.
The draft copyright law did not recognize an actor's performance as copyright, which the Beijing Treaty on Audiovisual Rights has now recognized actors' performances as copyright. But it left to state parties to the treaty to domesticate. What is AVRS doing to legally make it part of Nigerian copyright and realistically make producers and directors share in the copyright holding in a film?
Thank you. The Copyright Act is not a draft. I need to correct that. It's being reviewed. It's a law already that we are using, but it's being reviewed. There's a review that's been sent to that is in the process of being implemented. We start to have inputs some years back. One way or the other, there's been go slow in its implementation. But even the Copyright Act as it is today, right, has clauses, right? I said that earlier, has clauses that supports the right of the performer, right? It's just because most of our laws, particularly when it comes to creativity, we've not put them to test. And very soon, some of these things are going to be put to test. I don't want to put our arsenal out there, but I can assure you, whatever you think is not there is there. From what I heard, okay, it is there, and that is what AVRS is standing on, right? And our lawyers, we've gotten whatever we need to challenge anybody that the position is otherwise, right? In terms of the review and the domestication of the Begin Treaty in Nigeria, of course, it's not something you just do overnight. Work is going on. The NCC is not resting on its oars. The Ministry of Justice, in concert with those of us creatives, are doing all we can to ensure that the National Assembly does the right thing to include this fundamental treaty in our Copyright Act. I can assure you, maybe before this year runs out, I'm praying that we'll be able to get it domesticated. But we are on it.
Fantastic. I echo what Michelle says here. Good to know. Now, I have a comment here from Professor Kwasi, who says that Mobicon cannot be what is hampering the development of the industry. And most associations, I hope I got this right, most associations are not what has fueled mediocrity in the industry. And he's questioning which other places, where in the world do we have the equivalent of Mobicon? Are there other places that have such an association?
Prof, good evening. You know, we've debated this severally. I'm glad you are bringing it to a public forum that is larger than the ones we've discussed on. One thing I will say to you, hypothetically, even if it's not practiced elsewhere, right? What if it's going to work for us? Why don't we use it? Why don't we implement it? Must we wait for something to be implemented elsewhere before we now apply it, right? That's just what I would say to that issue of where was it done before that they were using video, right? Screen it in cinemas, if not Nigeria. Nigeria pioneered the use of video, VHS material, right? We took it to the screen. Late Jimmy Attil experimented with it at the National Theatre there, right? Nobody else in the world did that, but Nollywood did it. Nollywood revolutionized production with domestic video cameras, right? So that democratization now has opened the vista for everybody. So if we keep saying that, oh, where was it done before? It was not done in Hollywood, it was not done in Bollywood and all that. It has to start from somewhere. If it's going to work for us, why don't we try it, right? And about the mediocrity of the guilds and associations that we have today, that's another kettle of fish entirely, right? If we all agree, I mean, we use the Pareto principle. It's not everybody you need to carry along when you want to do something revolutionary, right? If you believe it will work, use whatever resource you have to push it. If it comes out, all well and good. If it doesn't, too bad. You continue to struggle, you continue to push for it. But that because some people are not doing this, or that, no, it's not going to stop us, right? The fact that it's not done anywhere else, it's not going to stop us. We'll continue to push for it. It's been on for a while, right? You were initially for it, Prof. I know, but you are now saying, oh, there are developments that are not that are in place today that does not call for us to have it anymore. I don't think Nigeria is a very peculiar country, right? What works in other places do not work here. I remember when Babangida said our economy is a very resilient one. He knew what he was saying. How many countries have gone through half of what we are going through in this country today and are still standing? It's a wonderful country. I cannot choose any other one. So, Prof, we will continue to push, and we are getting the traction, and we'll get there. Thank you.
Just to follow up, Prof has sent another comment. He says that the whole issue of Mobicom started with the home video, but video is no longer the issue. We must move on. Don't you think?
I think Prof is getting it wrong. The whole Mobicom thing didn't start with the issue of video. The whole Mobicom thing was based on the fact that, look, there's a need for practice to be structured, right? That is just what I'm saying. That's what we've been saying. For practice to be structured, for us to be able to fit in to the larger economy, right? There are people who are benefiting today as
can't hear.
Sorry. Please. Sorry, Mahmood, I'm sorry, you were mistakenly muted. Okay, okay, fine. No, that's fine. You were, no,
okay.
That's fine. Okay.
Like yes. I was saying, you see, the situation we have is that the government has to do something. If government has to do something, they will not just wake up and say, oh, we want to do something for the movie sector. They will have to work with some people. And there are consultants who exist today who are taking advantage of that lacuna that we have in the industry, right? And that we are, as practitioners, we are saying no, right? Let the people who they should tell you where it's pinching them, right? We don't want people who will represent us and would not know exactly what the issues are. I think when we aggregate our interest in a particular collective, we will be able to forge ahead better.
Okay, thank you, Mahmood. Now we have here a question from Ajike, another one from Ajike, who says, royalties are a no-go area in our industry. How do we set up the legal framework, monitoring and enforcement to start collecting royalties for audiovisual works, especially from TV stations and cables? Well, I think that's pretty much what you've been talking about. And how do we stop broadcast stations from conditioning producers to sign up their royalties with their rigid contracts and stop producers from doing the same to writers, directors, actors?
That is what we've been talking about, right? Copyright is an individual right. We must get that, right? Nobody can defend your right for you more than yourself. That we should be very clear about that. Whatever organization you have, whether it's AVRS, whether it's your guild or that, they are only assisting you. They are secondary protectors of your rights. Your right is yours. It's personal to you. Are you get what I'm saying? Be that as it may, right? The issue of signing contracts and blackmailing and all that, I mentioned it earlier. You have to stand for something, right? You cannot say, oh, they are blackmailing you. You now want to take something that is secondary as your remuneration or as your compensation, right? Say no. to some of these things. That's what AVRS, that's what AVRS stands for. And that's what some of this structure we are talking about, this collective, this council, if you want to call it so, this guild, if you want to call it so, this body or whatever you want to call it, will be doing for the industry, right? If we continue to say, oh, we don't want it, we don't, then who will speak for it? These individual approaches that we are having. Mahmood Ali-Balogun TV will give you a slavish contract and will say, look, if you don't sign it, you're not going to get this, but I have 2 million for you if you sign this in, and you append your signature to this. That has to stop. It has to stop. We must all come forward and say, look, we want to stop our exploitation, right? It's a kind of slavery that is going on. The NBC Act, I don't want to go into that yet. The NBC Act has some clauses that is quite supportive of all content owners, content creators. But how many of us have come forward to defend that clause? But just because, oh, don't let me go into that. Some of us are so close to some of these people who are exploiting us, and we are benefiting from the chaos on the ground. We want it to continue like that. No, it has to stop, right? I've been in the forefront of this for years. I've been blackmailed, I've been done this, I've been done that, but it won't deter me, right? There are platforms that I have not worked for years because of my position. It will continue to, like my people say in Yoruba, that because you want chop cow, they call cow my brother. It will work. We need to stand for our right, for what is right. Arike, I hope I'm clear. Don't sign any contract that you think, or you take it to your lawyer, or you bring it to us in AVRS, right? Yes, we know some of them have they reject their contracts to give you the impression that, oh, once you sign this, you cannot lay any claim anymore. That's nothing like that. Nothing like that in law anymore.
I think that's also very much linked to what we were saying earlier, the need for a greater education, that people need to understand better some of these structures, especially this thing about contracts and the clauses and so on. You need to read carefully and to be guarded. Now, on the basis of that, let's take a Zinnes question, who says, will structuring directly curb piracy and increase funding opportunities for filmmakers? I believe these are the most urgent needs of the industry.
If America cannot curb piracy, right, they lose billions every year to piracy. I don't know how whatever we are doing here will curb it. What we are saying is that whatever we are doing will mitigate it, will reduce it. Definitely you cannot stop piracy. No way. No way, no way. You can just reduce the extent to which it's done. And proper structuring will help that. And if you're properly structured, the right kind of funds will come in for the different aspects in the ecosystem in our industry, right? But with the unstructured nature, like one group used to call us, I remember when in 1999, when we approached Price Waterhouse to do a kind of study for us as regards Nollywood, right? And what they told us, then they said we should go and sit down so that our industries are structures on very ambiguous, woolly, without form. I'm an Amweba, so to speak. But today, Price Waterhouse is doing a lot as regards projecting the potential of the industry. So we have to start from somewhere, you know.
Okay, great. We'll take one last question. One last question now. You are the vice chairman of the Oscar Selection Committee for Nigeria. That's a big area we haven't touched yet. It's a big one. Well, this year we had a film that was at least made it to the nominations list and so on. From your perspective, are there things that we should be keeping in mind against making it to the definitive list in the future? Are there lessons we should learn from what has happened so far?
Definitely there are. You see, fortunately, we've progressed from where we were. You know, uh, 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 in the previous one, we made an entry, and it was adjudged not to be technically okay, right? But we were of the view that look, uh, it should be considered that. And this year, we made an entry completely in local language. What does that tell us, right? It's saying that that category where we can compete, that is the international features, can only happen with products in our indigenous language or languages, right? If we continue to want to compete in English, we will not qualify. That's a lot of us are not getting that straight. It is that category alone that we can compete. And fortunately, I would say that Pidgin has been accepted as an indigenous language, you know. And thanks to the committee, to the Nigeria Oscars committee, who were the one that pushed that, and there was a lot of uproar concerning the film that we pushed forward. And to this year, Pidgin is accepted as a foreign language. So it's kudos to the work of the committee, regardless of what people might say. And now also beyond the language, the rules are there, the criteria are there. You must have the necessary production value. If you go on the site, Oscar website, you will see it there. We can't just say, oh, because a movie is done in local language, it will qualify. There are certain things you must meet the technical requirement in terms of the pictures as well as the audio, right? And another thing is that the fact that your film is nominated, I mean, selected by your country, right, does not mean that you will rest your world. You see, what we have, what has happened is that when a film is selected by the country committee, it becomes the entry of the country. It beholds the entire nation through its government or whatever, even the corporate bodies to support that entry, to push it. It's not only about excellence anymore. That you are in the race shows that you have one leg in, right? Anybody can win. Nominations are like winning the award itself. That's why people who are nominated for anything, they are also recognized, even if they don't win the ultimate prize, right? So if we're able to get a work to the point of being picked, right, I think it behoves the entire country to put their support behind it, right? It's not my mind that you use to push an Oscar entry. It's all politics, it's all excellence, whatever people want to say. And it's all about money, ego, owo, kudi, right? We're yet to understand that here. Most times we leave it to the filmmaker to push that agenda. No, it's not about that individual filmmaker anymore. It's about the country that is projecting that film. So we need to do that. So a lot of variables are involved beyond just doing the film right. The quality has to be right in terms of the specs required by the Oscar, by the Academy itself, apart from the local language that is the prerequisite. So it's a whole.
It is indeed.
Yeah.
It is indeed.
Yeah.
So, but then, in a sense, it leaves the filmmaker pretty helpless because I mean, the third aspect you've mentioned now, the support from the country as a whole.
Yeah.
Who is going to push that? Who's going to generate it?
Yeah. You see,
it's
the awareness. It's a gradual process. In the last five, before the last 2 years, we've not had any entries at all.
yes.
But you see, from the last one, from last year, or I mean 2000 the 2020 or is it 2019? I don't know. The year is mixed up now. We made an entry that caused a storm globally, right? Even though we didn't qualify, right? We progressed from there. We moved to a situation where we qualified, we selected a movie that qualified for selection by the academy, but we didn't get the nomination. So it's a process. The awareness is coming, but we need to build on it. The committee needs to be supported. I must give kudos to the chairman of the committee, the current Oscar committee in Nigeria, Chinese, right? She invested a lot of her funds into pushing all Nigerian entries thus far, and other committee members, whatever, through their appearances and all that. So it's been the effort of the committee and the individual filmmakers to push that agenda. It shouldn't be so. Once we are confident and we select a movie, I think the entire nation needs to rally around that particular entry. I remember South Africa when they got nominated with Yesterday and eventually won with Tosi the following year. I met the person who was in charge in that country some years back in company of some of my colleagues, and the guy said they spent millions of dollars in promotion.
Wow.
Right? And eventually they got nominated, and the following year they got the Oscar. Since then, all they needed, they've achieved it. They put their name on the map.
Right.
So we need to get to that place. Budget for culture for this kind of thing in Nigeria, there has to be a new thinking. I know there are other competing things for money in Nigeria, but things pertaining to creativity and culture, they need to be looked at again. We shouldn't just be left in the backwaters.
Yes, I fully agree with you, because if we want to promote the creative industries as a source of both jobs and wealth, well, we need to be ready to invest. Everything is tied together. Well, Mahmood, thank you so very much. That's our last question here. Ishak, I see your hand is up. I was hoping you would type your question in the chat box. We can take further questions. But anyway, Mahmood, thank you so very much. This has been very enlightening. I think the insight into so many of the structural issues has been, at least for me, very fascinating. It's good to know some of these things. And I hope we can invite you on subsequent occasions. We can come and trouble you when we see the next phase that the AVRS gets into, that you'll come back and enlighten us. And we look forward to hearing about the film you're going into production for right now. So thank you so very much.
It's been a
Thank
pleasure.
you so very much.
I'm quite thrilled by the entire thing, and I want to appeal to filmmakers. Right, we need to continue to work together. Right, a lot of us, we are our respective islands. Right, we need to come together. We need to look at what is happening in the industry. We can't just remain in our individual cocoons and expect magic to happen. It can't happen. And the things that binds us are more than those that divide us, like they say. Come to AVRS. Our office is there in Anthony 15 Sylvia Crescent. Get to know, go to our website. Things are there. And as regards the body, the structure we are talking about, have no fears. No, right? It's for the benefit of all. Seriously speaking, it's for the benefit of all. It's not. Don't get deceived by those you think have access to information. Right? Bless you all.
Thank you so very much. And thank you all very much for coming to share this occasion with us, to our participants. Thank you very much. We hope we will also be able to welcome you at the next forum that we have, which is in a couple of weeks.
You're welcome.
Thank you all very much. Thank you again, Mahmood. And do stay well, everybody. All the best.
Bye.
Bye.